The first critical intellectual move in professional fashion practice is the deliberate migration from boundless conceptual space to a single, integrated aesthetic thesis. At the mouth of the funnel lie amorphous cultural cues, personal obsessions, and socioeconomic signals that exert gravitational pull on a creative mind. These inputs are intentionally left unfiltered at the outset. The designer's studio wall or digital pinboard overflows with archival photographs, tactile fragments, music references, and marginalia harvested from adjacent disciplines such as architecture or industrial design. What matters here is density, not order. The objective is to build sufficient semiotic mass so that patterns, recurring silhouettes, chromatic echoes, emotional resonances begin to self-organize. The experienced designer watches for these spontaneous clusters because they are embryonic directional vectors capable of guiding downstream decisions. Only when the entropic swirl matures into clearly legible signals does the funnel constrict, forcing discursive themes to collide and collapse into a cohesive point of view. Once the funnel narrows, the designer codifies personal intuition into shareable language, often a tightly edited mood board accompanied by crisp prose and a lexicon of key adjectives. This codification converts the ineffable into the communicable, allowing creative directors, merchandisers, pattern makers, and suppliers to triangulate around a common narrative. Crucially, the narrative is not a slogan. It is a multidimensional rule set that governs color hierarchy, fiber taxonomy, surface treatments, silhouette geometry, and emotional promise. When executed correctly, the rule set functions like the source code of a software program. Change one line and the entire behavior of the collection mutates. Maintaining integrity of the code base is therefore a leadership act. Senior designers audit every fabric swatch and sketch for compliance, refusing seductive detours that fall outside the narrative's logical perimeter. Chromatic engineering follows narrative crystallization. Instead of assembling a rainbow, the designer constructs a spectrum of relational chroma in which each hue is justified by its adjacency to others. The core anchor colors echo the brand's historical DNA or the season's commercial requirements. The energy injections provide optical motion. The nuance notes are neutral midtones that permit volumetric layering without visual noise. Practitioners map these roles in a color story grid, annotate Pantone references, and test for cross-lighting stability under warm retail LEDs, cold studio fluorescence, and direct natural light. Fabric selection is performed concurrently because materiality modulates the perception of color. A lipstick red in brushed silk possesses different wavelength absorption characteristics than the same red in polyurethane-coated denim. Thus, palette and substrate co-evolve until friction disappears. Silhouette authoring starts once color material scaffolding is stable. Here, the designer oscillates between macro proportions and micro displacements. Macro questions ask, where does volume lie? Shoulders, hip panels, sleeve caps. Micro questions dissect dart intake, crotch curve length, and collar stand height in millimeter resolution. The negotiation between macro drama and micro ergonomics demands iterative 2D to 3D translation. Designers sketch, drape, scan, and simulate in CLO or browseware, hunting for a silhouette that fulfills three constraints simultaneously: aesthetic novelty, manufacturability at scale, and biomechanical comfort. Failure to satisfy any one of these produces downstream entropy, excess cost, irreparable fit issues, or consumer rejection. As the funnel approaches its apex, embellishment logic is superimposed. Embroidery, laser engraving, or hardware can serve as semantic punctuation marks that reiterate the narrative thesis without degrading wearability. The lead designer maintains a ruthless tally of meaning per gram. Every rivet, bead, or applique must deliver sufficient narrative or functional value to justify its financial and carbon footprint. The funnel finally terminates in a compact technical dossier: vector flats, graded measurement specs, calibrated colorways, and a bill of materials aligned to cost targets. Figure 1.1 visualizes this entire gravitational collapse, from cosmic inspiration to actionable blueprint, reminding practitioners that ideas themselves are infinite, but execution lives and dies by discipline narrowing. Strategic editing and product development workflow. Strategic editing is one of the foundational practices that differentiates aspirational designers from truly successful, commercially viable fashion brands. In the early phases of design development, creativity tends to produce an expansive universe of concepts overflowing with ideas, sketches, and swatches. Designers, especially when fueled by passionate inspiration, can generate volumes of intriguing garment concepts without necessarily reflecting on their practical implications. However, the professional editor within the designer's mind acts as a critical gatekeeper, meticulously reviewing each concept to ensure alignment with both creative intent and commercial feasibility. Editing is not merely an exercise in restraint, but rather a highly strategic, multidimensional discipline that balances design innovation, brand identity, financial viability, and operational execution. Effective editing begins by clearly defining the editorial criteria, often outlined through an editorial matrix or rubric. At a fundamental level, this rubric typically includes parameters such as narrative alignment, manufacturability, commercial potential, sustainability, innovation, and brand consistency. Each garment or style is evaluated against these criteria systematically, transforming subjective opinions into measurable data. The benefit of quantifying the editing process through an editorial matrix is profound. It provides a structured framework for decision making that minimizes emotional bias and ensures objective accountability. Rather than simply discarding ideas because they are unexciting or too challenging, the editorial matrix demands thorough justifications grounded in predefined strategic goals. Thus, garments are not eliminated arbitrarily, but through a transparent rationale that supports the brand's overarching objectives. Within this strategic editing workflow, designers must become attuned to what production managers and operational specialists refer to as the theory of constraints. Every collection has inherent constraints, often determined by production timelines, sourcing availability, technical capabilities, or financial limitations. Styles that feature complex embroidery, intricate beadwork, or specialized fabric treatments can often create unintended bottlenecks in manufacturing, ultimately inflating lead times, increasing costs, or risking inconsistent quality control. In this context, the editor functions as a logistical strategist, proactively identifying potential operational constraints and removing high-risk elements before they become insurmountable issues. Effective editors understand that even the most compelling designs can fail commercially if production complications overshadow aesthetic value. By identifying these constraints early in the process, teams save valuable resources, reduce operational stress, and secure profitability. Following the critical curation process, attention shifts toward product development, where abstract ideas are meticulously translated into technical documentation. The cornerstone of this phase is the creation of robust technical packages, tech packs, which serve as detailed blueprints for manufacturing garments. Tech packs are designed to communicate precise technical instructions across a diverse group of stakeholders: pattern makers, fabric cutters, sewing operators, factory supervisors, and quality control inspectors. An exemplary tech pack is exhaustive, featuring specifications on fabric composition, construction details, trim placements, measurement points, grading scales, color standards, and production timelines. It also includes visual documentation such as technical flats, annotated illustrations, and exploded views of complex assembly instructions. The objective is clarity. Every aspect of garment construction is articulated in a universally understood visual and textual language, leaving minimal ambiguity and eliminating guesswork at the factory level. The process of developing patterns aligns closely with tech pack creation. Regardless of whether patterns are generated digitally through software like Optitex, Gerber AccuMark, or manually crafted by skilled pattern makers, patterns represent educated hypotheses about fabric behavior, construction compatibility, and fit dynamics. Early stage patterns rarely achieve perfection immediately. Instead, initial patterns undergo iterative prototyping and meticulous refinement. Garment prototypes created from these patterns are rigorously assessed during fittings, where technical designers and fit specialists systematically document discrepancies. Common issues, such as inconsistent ease, fabric tension, seam puckering, dart misalignment, or improper drape, are carefully recorded and communicated back to the pattern making team. Adjustments to the pattern,
such as subtle modifications to armhole curves, shoulder slopes, seam allowances, or grading increments, are then made based on empirical observations from these fittings. This iterative refinement cycle is essential to ensure garments meet rigorous aesthetic and functional standards. Importantly, the iterative nature of fittings and pattern refinements demands disciplined scheduling and effective time management. Sample rooms and manufacturing facilities typically operate under tightly regulated production calendars. Delays in pattern corrections can trigger cascading disruptions downstream. Seasoned designers and product developers thus schedule fitting sessions strategically, factoring in adequate turnaround time for necessary corrections. Experienced teams anticipate that not every sample will meet initial expectations, planning multiple rounds of prototyping into their project timelines from inception. The goal is always to minimize iterations, but realistic planning acknowledges that iterative cycles are inevitable. Thus, managing these cycles efficiently becomes a hallmark of strategic product development. Another critical component of the editing and development process involves extensive cross functional collaboration. Fashion design teams rarely operate in isolation. Instead, they integrate input from merchandisers, sourcing specialists, production managers, marketing strategists, and sales analysts. These cross functional teams review the collection collectively, examining styles through the diverse lenses of market analytics, sourcing feasibility, price positioning, consumer preferences, and historical sales data. Merchandisers often provide valuable insights, drawing from past season performance to highlight styles that historically sell well or fail consistently. For example, if historical sales data indicate lilac consistently underperforms, merchandisers advise caution when reintroducing similar colorways, suggesting alternative hues or limited volumes to mitigate risk. In these collaborative forums, effective editors advocate for creative ideas, but simultaneously remain receptive to evidence based insights provided by cross functional stakeholders. The ability to integrate this quantitative feedback gracefully distinguishes mature designers who balance creative integrity with commercial pragmatism. Strategic editing also encompasses rigorous financial planning and cost management, aligning product development decisions with budgetary targets and profitability metrics. Each style in the collection carries a specific cost profile, shaped by material choices, construction complexity, labor requirements, trim details, and packaging costs. Editors must carefully assess whether each garment's projected market value justifies its associated manufacturing costs. Styles that push beyond established budget thresholds necessitate deliberate negotiation, either through design simplifications, alternative sourcing options, or targeted price adjustments. Detailed bill of materials, BOM analyses, become critical tools in this context, enabling designers to experiment with various cost reduction scenarios without compromising core design elements. Additionally, sustainable sourcing considerations often intersect with cost evaluations, prompting designers to weigh eco friendly materials and ethical production methods against potential financial trade offs. Strategic editors navigate these complex intersections judiciously, prioritizing styles that deliver optimal balance between creative expression, ethical responsibility, and financial viability. Finally, strategic editing acknowledges the essential role sustainability plays in contemporary fashion product development. Editors increasingly embed sustainability criteria into their editorial matrices, evaluating each garment's environmental impact through factors such as material origin, recyclability, biodegradability, chemical usage, and production transparency. Sustainable editing practices often encourage the reduction of unnecessary complexity in garments, advocating streamlined designs that consume fewer resources, minimize waste, and simplify end of life recycling. By thoughtfully integrating sustainable considerations into their editing workflows, designers not only fulfill consumer demand for responsible fashion, but also proactively mitigate regulatory risks and enhance long term brand equity. In sum, strategic editing within the fashion product development workflow is not simply about eliminating weak ideas or restraining creativity. Rather, it represents a disciplined, multidimensional practice that synthesizes creative innovation, operational realism, commercial analysis, technical precision, and ethical consciousness into a cohesive, executable vision. Mastering strategic editing empowers fashion designers to transition seamlessly from abstract ideation to tangible production, delivering compelling collections that consistently resonate with consumers, generate profitability, and build lasting brand success.
Roles, data, and process flowcharts in collaborative fashion design. Fashion design, despite popular misconceptions, rarely manifests as the isolated act of a solitary creative genius. Instead, contemporary fashion thrives as a deeply interconnected, highly orchestrated cyber-physical system characterized by continuous data flow, clear delineations of responsibility, and sophisticated information feedback loops. Within this intricate ecosystem, the concept of collaborative design emerges as essential, transcending individual artistry to reveal a dynamic network of roles, processes, and analytics. Figures 1.2 and 1.3 powerfully illustrate these internal frameworks, articulating authority gradients, data streams, and critical interdependencies among multiple specialized roles, thus underscoring the inherently collaborative and iterative nature of professional fashion practice. At the apex of this collaborative design ecosystem is the creative director, whose function extends significantly beyond mere aesthetic oversight. In modern fashion organizations, the creative director operates primarily as an epistemic architect, carefully constructing the ideological foundation upon which the entire collection is built. This role requires synthesizing abstract cultural narratives, historical references, trend insights, and deeply held brand values into what sociologists might describe as a mythos template. This mythos template forms the conceptual backbone of the season's collection, clearly articulating the emotional resonance, cultural significance, and consumer identity the brand intends to project. Rather than micromanaging garment-level details such as seam placements or pocket flap dimensions, the creative director sets high-level strategic and thematic parameters that shape the conceptual framework for all subsequent design efforts. It is through the skillful creation and maintenance of this mythos template that the creative director ensures thematic coherence, strategic alignment, and cultural relevance, guiding design teams toward a shared vision that resonates deeply with target audiences. Directly beneath the creative director, departmental design directors, such as those leading menswear, women's wear, knitwear, or accessories, translate the overarching mythos template into specific departmental dialects. Each design director interprets the broader narrative according to specialized design contexts, accounting for distinct garment types, consumer expectations, and production constraints unique to their respective departments. For instance, menswear design directors might emphasize tailored construction, precise proportions, and classic fabrications consistent with traditional sartorial codes, whereas women's wear directors may embrace fluid silhouettes, innovative draping, and experimental textiles. These departmental interpretations require expert technical understanding of unique pattern-making challenges, specialized grading methods, and distinct cost structures inherent to each garment category. As departmental directors generate detailed silhouette assortments, fabric palettes, and embellishment concepts, they remain deeply attuned to both creative integrity and engineering pragmatism. In practice, their deliverables form a coherent design language that clearly respects the overarching mythos established by the creative director, even as they navigate category-specific complexities. Interwoven with the roles of creative and departmental directors is the indispensable function of fashion merchandisers, often misunderstood by creative teams, yet essential for achieving market resonance and commercial viability. Rather than acting as impediments or adversaries, merchandisers inject crucial empirical rigor and commercial logic into the design decision-making process. They leverage robust analytical frameworks built on Bayesian reasoning, predictive modeling, historical sell-through data, velocity curves, consumer feedback loops, and geographic demand mapping to assess the probability of commercial success across style attributes such as color, size range, silhouette, and fabrication choices. Merchandisers interpret past performance metrics to generate precise forecasts regarding consumer receptivity, inventory turnover rates, and profitability projections. Through this analytical lens, merchandisers highlight market constraints, consumer preferences, and competitive positioning, allowing design teams to make informed, data-driven decisions. Skilled designers learn to embrace merchandising insights, treating data as an additional design material, no less critical than textiles or color, to strategically modulate risk across collections. High-risk experimental styles coexist deliberately alongside core, proven silhouettes, thus balancing creative innovation against financial security. Rather than constraining design freedom, merchandising analytics provide vital guardrails that enable informed experimentation while minimizing commercial risk. Process flowcharts, as illustrated by figures 1.2, businesses, and 1.3, portfolio creators, effectively visualize these complex interdependencies and data-driven exchanges. In enterprise contexts, fashion collections develop within multi-directional information flows, integrating top-down strategic directives with bottom-up operational feedback from pattern makers, production engineers, sample rooms, sales teams, and marketing strategists. These intricate, dynamic feedback loops ensure continuous recalibration of designs according to real-time operational realities, consumer insights, and market conditions. The efficacy of these flowcharts relies heavily on rapid, transparent communication and clearly defined escalation pathways. For instance, when technical challenges such as infeasible constructions, unavailable fabrics, or unforeseen cost overruns arise during sampling, immediate feedback loops trigger swift corrective action. Information moves promptly upward through design and sourcing hierarchies, prompting rapid reassessment and design recalibration. Ignoring these feedback loops can result in what operations researchers refer to as error amplification, wherein minor issues compound exponentially as designs advance through successive development stages, ultimately jeopardizing production timelines, inflating costs, and undermining quality control. In contrast, smaller brands, independent designers, or fashion portfolio creators must adeptly navigate multiple roles simultaneously, effectively impersonating distinct nodes within the process flowchart. A solo founder or independent designer frequently transitions between concept generation, fabric sourcing, technical pattern development, sample making, photography, marketing, and sales, all within condensed time frames. Successful management of these diverse responsibilities requires disciplined cognitive and temporal segmentation. Rather than multitasking chaotically, experienced solo practitioners batch related tasks into clearly defined, uninterrupted time blocks, engaging solely in creative concepting for specified intervals before systematically shifting to sourcing logistics, sample fitting sessions, or digital marketing content creation. This structured approach reduces cognitive overload, maintains productivity, and enhances decision-making quality. For fashion students developing portfolio collections, embracing this segmented workflow becomes especially instructive, embedding essential procedural muscle memory that hiring managers highly value. Students benefit significantly from simulating realistic production calendars, drafting mock purchase orders, developing provisional quality assurance checklists, and engaging in disciplined self-critique through iterative sampling and prototyping exercises. Emerging technological innovations such as digital twin technology dramatically amplify the sophistication, efficiency, and responsiveness of fashion design process workflows. Digital twin platforms enable real-time virtual simulations of garment designs integrated with live bill of materials, BOM databases, cost calculation modules, and sustainability impact assessment tools. Using advanced software such as CLO 3D, Browseware, or Optitex, designers rapidly prototype three-dimensional digital garments that replicate fabric drape, seam performance, and fit accuracy with remarkable precision. These virtual prototypes seamlessly connect with internal costing systems and supplier databases, allowing designers immediate visibility into material availability, production expenses, and carbon footprint calculations as they refine designs. Merchandising dashboards automatically update profit margin projections, inventory forecasts, and risk assessments in real time as designers
Fashion organizations mastering these digital ecosystems achieve significant competitive advantages, accelerating design to market timelines, reducing reliance on physical sampling, enhancing cost transparency, and generating audit-ready sustainability data. Digital twins empower designers to experiment freely with low-risk digital prototypes, exploring radical creative possibilities while precisely quantifying commercial implications. Sustainability metrics embedded directly into digital platforms further incentivize environmentally responsible design practices, prompting designers to proactively evaluate ecological impacts across material selections, production processes, and product lifecycle assessments. Moreover, real-time digital collaboration capabilities facilitate seamless remote teamwork, enabling geographically dispersed design, merchandising, sourcing, and production teams to collaborate synchronously within shared virtual environments, eliminating traditional physical sampling delays and significantly enhancing organizational agility.
Harnessing spontaneous inspiration within a repeatable framework. The fashion industry has long romanticized the idea of the inspired genius struck suddenly by a lightning bolt of creativity, instantly conjuring groundbreaking collections out of thin air. Indeed, this myth endures precisely because designers occasionally do experience a phenomenological state of heightened clarity, a creative epiphany where fully formed garments appear vividly in their imagination. The football uniform-inspired collection illustrated through rapid sketches executed amidst airplane turbulence, figures 1.4ac, vividly captures this phenomenon. Muscle memory propelled gesture lines spontaneously across the page, effortlessly translating subconscious pattern recognition into forms merging athletic volumes with tailored elegance. Such profound moments reinforce the seductive notion of instantaneous brilliance. However, experienced designers understand that these inspired flashes alone cannot sustainably fuel a successful fashion brand. Institutional stakeholders, ranging from factory partners to retail buyers and financial investors, require temporal predictability, production calendars, sales forecasts, and clear operational parameters. Consequently, the truly successful fashion professional masters the complex art of harnessing spontaneous inspiration within a structured, repeatable framework, balancing creative spontaneity with operational discipline. Central to achieving this delicate equilibrium is a disciplined practice known as the ideation quarantine. When an unexpected burst of inspiration strikes, rather than immediately committing significant resources to its realization, the designer documents the idea succinctly, typically through rapid sketches, voice memos, or brief digital notes. Crucially, the ideation quarantine demands that designers then step away from the concept for at least 24 hours, allowing the initial adrenaline-fueled excitement to dissipate. Neuroscientifically, this intentional delay engages the brain's prefrontal cortex, transitioning the evaluative process from an impulsive, emotionally charged state toward calmer, more deliberate consideration. The quarantine provides crucial cognitive space in which designers objectively reassess the idea's novelty, viability, and alignment with overarching brand directives, away from the immediate influence of enthusiasm or emotional bias. Upon subsequent reflection, if the idea retains its initial potency and withstands rational scrutiny, it progresses into the formal design pipeline. At this juncture, the concept undergoes rigorous evaluation based on clearly defined strategic criteria, including coherence with the collection's muse, sourcing feasibility, estimated cost parameters, and potential legal implications involving intellectual property. By standardizing the integration of spontaneous inspiration within a disciplined evaluative framework, brands systematically mitigate the sunk cost fallacy, the risk of investing disproportionately in charismatic yet ultimately impractical designs. Designers also strategically engineer working environments specifically optimized to foster controlled serendipity. Rather than passively awaiting spontaneous inspiration, designers proactively cultivate conditions under which serendipitous encounters with novel stimuli become predictable and repeatable. Seasoned designers assemble carefully curated stimulus matrices, meticulously arrange sources of inspiration including diverse podcasts, comprehensive material libraries, virtual reality exhibitions, documentaries, art installations, historical archives, and cross-disciplinary workshops. These matrices are not randomly encountered.
Rather, they are deliberately scheduled during critical developmental stages when creativity might otherwise plateau or stagnate. The objective is to intentionally disrupt routine cognitive patterns, injecting fresh neural inputs precisely when creative entropy threatens. These matrices emulate the spontaneity of external environments, such as airport terminals or bustling city streets, but within an intentional, structured format that permits repeatable creative stimulation without randomness. Furthermore, many designers implement cognitive dashboards to continuously track metrics such as ideation velocity, the frequency and depth of concept generation, and overall creative output. When creativity dips below predetermined thresholds, dashboards trigger timely introduction of new curated stimuli, effectively rebooting creative productivity on demand. Over time, designers accumulate extensive personal databases correlating specific stimuli, whether Baroque organ music, aerospace documentaries, architectural forms, or ethnographic studies, with their respective creative outcomes, such as innovative pleating techniques, novel closures, or unprecedented silhouette structures. Through repeated practice, designers thus establish predictable links between external stimuli and targeted creative breakthroughs, effectively transforming spontaneous inspiration into an accessible, repeatable resource. Once ideas successfully graduate from the ideation quarantine and curated stimuli phases, they rapidly transition into three-dimensional experimentation within highly dynamic workshop environments. The workshop serves not merely as a space for prototyping finalized designs, but as a dynamic living laboratory where ideas evolve rapidly through immediate physical iteration. Designers frequently begin this experimental process using inexpensive, versatile materials such as calico or muslin, quickly draping initial concepts onto half-scale mannequins or dress forms. This tactile exploration provides immediate physical feedback regarding proportion, silhouette integrity, balance, and garment behavior under real-world gravitational conditions. Through swift physical iterations, designers swiftly refine ideas, quickly identifying problematic elements, impractical proportions, or areas requiring further exploration. Concurrently, advanced mobile scanning applications digitize these draped forms instantaneously, seamlessly integrating physical experimentation with powerful digital prototyping tools like CLO 3D or Browseware. These software platforms rapidly translate physical drape experiments into accurate virtual simulations, permitting designers to test garment performance digitally under various simulated conditions, including wearer locomotion, material stretch, and movement-induced stress. This rapid analog-digital interplay and intense back-and-forth cycle between physical prototyping and virtual simulation accelerates design development dramatically, transforming raw intuitive ideas into precise, production-ready geometric blueprints within significantly compressed timelines. This accelerated iteration prevents the decay of initial enthusiasm, capturing ephemeral inspiration and crystallizing it swiftly into commercially executable designs before creative momentum dissipates. Even amidst rapid, spontaneous experimentation, successful brands prioritize maintaining narrative continuity and preserving cohesive brand identity through strategic use of thematic anchor points. Fashion consumers develop deep emotional connections with brands precisely because consistent symbolic references provide comforting familiarity alongside stylistic innovation. Consequently, designers meticulously integrate core semiotic anchors, distinctive signature details such as proprietary stitching patterns, recognizable hardware finishes, brand-specific textiles, recurring color palettes, or subtle historical motifs drawn explicitly from corporate mythology into even the most spontaneously conceived collections. These thematic anchors function metaphorically as cognitive tethers, ensuring consumers experience stylistic surprises as delightful variations within a trusted narrative framework rather than confusing deviations from expected brand identity. In practice, maintaining consistent thematic anchors does not constrain innovation, rather, it strategically contextualizes spontaneous creative expression within clearly defined symbolic parameters. Brands mastering this delicate balance skillfully deliver fresh aesthetic experiences that simultaneously reinforce long-term brand recognizability, strengthen consumer loyalty, and justify premium price positioning within competitive markets. Harnessing spontaneous inspiration effectively also demands rigorous operational discipline, including precise management of production calendars, sourcing timelines, and quality control protocols, while spontaneous concepts inject crucial freshness into collections. Institutional stakeholders, manufacturing partners, supply chain managers, financial investors, and retail buyers expect predictable production timelines, reliable product availability, and accurate cash flow projections. Consequently, designers integrate spontaneous creative exploration seamlessly within meticulously structured operational schedules, proactively accounting for additional prototyping cycles, sample room capacity constraints, sourcing lead times, and material availability contingencies. This comprehensive operational foresight ensures inspired creative concepts remain practically executable within rigorous commercial parameters. Experienced designers proactively identify potential production bottlenecks or technical constraints early in development, negotiating appropriate material substitutions, simplified construction techniques, or alternative embellishments to maintain original creative intent while ensuring manufacturability, consistency, and profitability. In summary, designers who successfully harness spontaneous inspiration within structured, repeatable frameworks master several interrelated strategies: disciplined ideation quarantines, carefully curated environments fostering controlled serendipity, rapid analog digital prototyping cycles within dynamic workshops, strategic thematic anchors preserving narrative continuity, and proactive operational discipline ensuring practical manufacturability. Rather than passively awaiting unpredictable creative epiphanies, these professionals systematically domesticate spontaneity, translating ephemeral intuitive impulses into consistent commercial successes. Ultimately, achieving sustainable fashion excellence involves precisely balancing seemingly contradictory imperatives, embracing spontaneous creativity while methodically ensuring operational predictability, market responsiveness, and brand consistency.
Temporal architecture of portfolios and commercial collections. Time, though invisible, is arguably the most critical raw material in the realm of fashion design. It dictates everything from creative ideation windows to production schedules and ultimately shapes a designer's ability to deliver market resonance. The careful orchestration of time is what differentiates amateur designers from seasoned professionals who masterfully leverage temporal structures. Whether within academic portfolios or commercial collections, designers who learn to navigate and exploit timing possess a competitive advantage. Figures 1.6ab, 1.7, and 1.8 collectively illustrate this intricate temporal architecture, underscoring its transformative impact on both individual skill refinement and broader commercial success. Within academic contexts, the rigorous schedules defined by semesters or quarters impose essential discipline on budding designers. Educational programs in fashion typically operate within tightly controlled 16-week cycles, compressing multiple design stages: ideation, conceptualization, prototyping, and final presentation into sequential, structured phases. This condensed format, depicted through the iterative progression from early sketches to refined renderings in figures 1.6ab, highlights the profound evolution achievable through disciplined repetition over extended periods. Initial sketches from novice students often reveal uncertainty in line quality, limited spatial intelligence, and an embryonic sense of thematic coherence. Yet, through relentless repetition, iteration, and critique, these rudimentary sketches mature progressively into sophisticated renderings with deliberate proportions, balanced compositions, and deeply considered thematic subtleties. Such iterative practice is central to pedagogical methods precisely because industry recruiters prioritize designers capable of executing with precision under constrained timelines. Academic curricula deliberately simulate the pressure cooker intensity of real-world fashion timelines, cultivating parallel processing capabilities. Students emerge adept in simultaneously conducting mood board development, drafting technical flats, fabric sourcing, prototyping, and narrative articulation, all essential skills transferable directly to professional industry settings. The hidden curriculum embedded within these rigorous academic timelines instills in students the essential skill of opportunity cost analysis, a key element in temporal mastery. Under compressed project windows, designers learn strategic prioritization, intuitively discerning which design elements require meticulous perfection and which can be effectively managed through strategic time boxing. The ruthless necessity to meet academic deadlines teaches aspiring designers the art of balancing meticulous attention to detail against overarching project deliverables. For instance, students quickly internalize that elaborate fabric manipulation techniques or highly intricate embellishments must be selectively applied to critical signature pieces within their collections, while simpler methods suffice elsewhere to ensure timely completion. This nuanced decision-making, learned under academic temporal constraints, equips students with valuable narratives for professional interviews, demonstrating their capability to deliver meticulously executed designs precisely on schedule, a skill set deeply valued by prospective employers. Moving from academic portfolios to professional environments, temporal structures diversify significantly, adapting to varied market channels. Commercial fashion timelines fragment distinctly according to wholesale and direct-to-consumer (DTC) operational models, each presenting unique temporal complexities. Wholesale brands traditionally adhere to extensive timelines dictated largely by market cycles, trade show calendars, and department store buying periods. Figure 1.7 vividly exemplifies this extended temporal architecture for a conventional designer price point brand headquartered in New York City. Within this model, the timeline commences well in advance, with conceptual development freezing typically by July, thereby initiating a critical cascade of subsequent production events. Following this initial freeze, designers transition immediately into the sampling phase, meticulously preparing showroom quality prototypes by October. These samples enable brand representatives and sales agents to conduct road shows and line sheet presentations throughout the late autumn and winter months, culminating in major buying events during January Market Week. Production orders from wholesale buyers typically solidify by March, facilitating structured factory allocations, precise materials procurement, and optimized production scheduling. Subsequently, manufactured garments are delivered strategically to retail locations in calculated waves, often beginning in June and extending into August, precisely timed for optimal consumer demand. Within this meticulously choreographed timeline, temporal accuracy is paramount. Misalignment of any critical milestone, from sampling delays to mismanaged sourcing logistics, initiates cascading disruptions that ripple adversely through the entire supply chain, inflating costs, delaying shipments, and ultimately undermining retail performance. To safeguard against such operational vulnerability, wholesale brands employ robust retro planning tools, notably Gantt charts, incorporating strategic buffer periods explicitly designed to absorb unforeseen temporal shocks. Such disruptions might include holiday-related factory closures, political protests impacting port access, or global events like pandemics destabilizing international supply chains. Experienced fashion brands rigorously anticipate these variables, embedding proactive contingencies within their timelines, thus insulating themselves against temporal volatility. The wholesale fashion calendar's rigid adherence to structured deadlines demands meticulous backward planning, disciplined execution, and vigilant temporal monitoring. Designers who succeed within this wholesale paradigm therefore cultivate exceptional temporal awareness, proactively managing contingencies while consistently meeting exacting market deadlines, a skill indispensable to sustained commercial success. Contrasting sharply with wholesale models, direct-to-consumer brands radically reconfigure traditional fashion timelines, capitalizing on their freedom from wholesale intermediaries. Unlike traditional wholesale cycles, DTC labels frequently employ accelerated micro-launch cadences, rapidly introducing new capsule collections approximately every 4 weeks to maintain continuous consumer engagement and algorithmic prominence on digital platforms. This relentless rhythm demands designers operate at an accelerated tempo, condensing traditional seasonal development into significantly abbreviated timeframes. However, this heightened tempo introduces notable risks: intensified production pressures, abbreviated quality control intervals, and limited capacity for rigorous sustainability auditing. Recognizing these risks, many contemporary DTC brands strategically adopt hybrid temporal models.
They structure flagship collections around traditional seasonal anchors, such as spring, summer, and fall-winter, while interspersing smaller, strategically timed capsule launches throughout intervening months. These smaller refreshers might include limited edition color variations, exclusive collaborations, accessory drops, or timely thematic releases strategically aligned with consumer events and cultural trends. Such strategic layering within the temporal architecture ensures brands maintain ongoing consumer relevance and digital algorithmic visibility without excessively compromising product integrity or sustainability considerations. The resort cruise season further illustrates how shifting consumer behavior reshapes traditional temporal frameworks. Historically, resort collections targeted affluent consumers vacationing in warm climates during Northern Hemisphere winter months. However, Figure 1.8 illustrates how evolving global consumer patterns and increased international mobility have rendered resort collections broadly relevant to climate-agnostic global markets. Today, swimwear and resort-focused brands increasingly report peak sales precisely during winter months, notably January, as Northern Hemisphere consumers actively seek escapism from harsh weather conditions through vacations in warmer climates. Consequently, planners within these brands strategically stage production and inventory planning counterintuitively, scheduling peak manufacturing and stocking precisely when Northern Hemisphere weather is coldest. Such nuanced temporal recalibration, informed by precise consumer demand analytics, exemplifies the sophistication required to leverage temporal insights effectively in contemporary commercial fashion operations. Portfolio builders operating independently frequently adapt commercial temporal principles explicitly tailored to individual creative workflows. For instance, independent designers commonly structure their personal timelines as concentrated design sprints, often ranging from 5 to 8 weeks, intentionally mimicking advanced industry studio deadlines. Within each self-assigned sprint, designers methodically execute all essential development phases: comprehensive mood boards, cohesive color and fabric stories, fully rendered figure illustrations, precise technical flats, optional textile sampling, and structured narrative articulation. By replicating professional temporal structures in portfolio building contexts, designers systematically cultivate disciplined workflow habits essential to commercial viability. Furthermore, self-directed sprint schedules instill robust project management competencies, enhancing personal accountability, disciplined creativity, and deadline-oriented execution, attributes particularly attractive to prospective employers evaluating candidate portfolios. Ultimately, temporal architecture acts as an implicit selection mechanism within both academic and commercial fashion contexts. Brands and portfolio builders who masterfully respect temporal constraints and operational calendars consistently outperform counterparts romanticizing unlimited creative tinkering. Fashion brands that strategically leverage temporal structures, carefully calibrating timelines backward from consumer events such as holiday seasons, fashion weeks, cultural festivals, climate transitions, or psychological demand peaks, successfully deliver precisely timed collections that resonate profoundly with consumer desires.